Kelly and I'm the founder and one of the directors for Bring Me Sunshine. We provide music therapy, activities and seated exercise across the community, and today the Buzz have asked me to provide a couple of videos to show you how you can enjoy music even if you're not a musician or a singer. Okay, so I've set a little table up so that you can hopefully see a little bit closer what we're going to make. Now, I've saved lots of different bits and pieces from my house, what would normally go in the recycling, and I'm going to use other household items to hopefully show you how you can try and recreate different sounds that you would normally hear in different instruments. So I'm going to show you first what I consider to be drum sounds. Now, most of these items are just basic stuff that you would have in your house, and obviously they're now empty, and there's nothing, nothing strange about any of the items. This one is a Pringles tube. I've got a gravy tube, an old tin of peas, obviously empty, a coffee pot, and some polystyrene cups, just empty polystyrene cups. Now, if you were hitting a drum, it will have quite a bassy sound, and each one of these items, because of the shape, creates a different tone and a different sound. So if I just start with the Pringles tube and show you, you just simply hit your hand with it, it makes quite a nice noise. You can hit it harder, you can hit it on the top. That's a completely different sound to the side. You could also use something as a beater. Now, I've got different items here. I've got reusable plastic straws, so these are really quite firm. I've got your normal bendy straws, but you don't see these very often now. So just to show you the difference in what sound comes out of something depending what you strike it with. So if we use the firm straw, the reusable straw, now this is the really thin plastic straw, so much softer sound. We could use a spatula. This is just a normal spatula out of my kitchen. Even if you do it on the bottom, so the closed end, they're all different sounds. So I'm just going to show you the difference. That's the Pringle tube. This is the cardboard gravy granule tube. Just my hand. Now, because this bottom here is flexible, it's flicking back as we're hitting it. So that's a completely different sound again to the Pringles tube. Now, your parents may have done this. People used to use coconut shells and different items to kind of clap together, and maybe as a child you would have done this in primary school, so to make the sound of like a horse. Again, you can hit the top. Quite a dull sound that. If you hit it with something else but lift it so that the area is open, these are all different tones, all different sounds. So you can play around with those. They all make different noises. Another way you can make a very simple drum is by using an empty can and a balloon, and we're going to stretch the balloon over the open area of the can. Now, this will give a completely different sound, but again, if you're using lots of different items, you could quite easily make yourself a varied little drum kit. So I'm going to show you really easy how to do this. So this is a normal balloon, just an average size balloon. Give it a stretch. And what you're going to aim to do is, as you see the balloon go narrower to the neck, you're going to cut it straight across just before the neck. You don't want to do it too far down, otherwise the hole's going to be so small, you're going to find it really difficult to stretch over the can. So I'm going to cut it just as it starts to thin out. If you're not sure about scissors, get an adult to help you. Okay, so you're going to pop your fingers inside the balloon, and it really is quite stretchy. Now this can be a little bit fiddly, so you might need more than one balloon. Your first one might not work. It's really simple. You just stretch it over the can like that. Now you can pull it down a little bit at the sides, but that really is quite secure. Now if you wanted to make these instruments look prettier, or you wanted to make them more long term, there's nothing to stop you decorating the tins, cans, tubes before you make your drum kit. So this would be really easy to cover in coloured paper or stickers. You can completely remove the you know, the paper from the outside, and you could just have a plain silver drum. That's an option. So just to show you on the table the different beaters that we used before, I think that's a really good drum sound. And again, even with a really gentle bendy straw. Now these are things that I found in my cupboard. These used to be my son's when he was very small, but because they've got like a beater shape at the end, I think that makes a really good sound. And because the balloon is quite flexible and it's made of rubber, it almost bounces the beater back without much effort. I think you'll have some fun with that. Okay, so that's drums. Okay, as well as drums, you could use different containers to make different sounds by adding things into them, and I'll show you what I mean. So if you remember the gravy granule tube that's got a bottom that's quite flexible, we said before, didn't we? This one definitely was more flexible. This one's a little bit firmer. Okay, but I've kept the lid for this one, and there's a reason for that. Because if you've used a shaker before, or a maraca, that kind of thing, you can make your own at home by simply adding a material inside it that will make a different noise as you move it around. And I'll show you what I mean. So if we add some rice, it's just normal household rice. Add some rice in there. I'll pop the lid back on. That's quite a gentle sound. Almost like what we would call a rainmaker. Or perhaps if you were trying to recreate the sound of the seaside, that could be the sea. You can swirl it around. Completely different sound to that. You'd need to hold the lid on for this one, or you could perhaps secure it with some glue before you push your lid in. Different sound again. If the lid was secured, that's the cardboard bottom. If you turn it over, it will have a different sound again with a plastic bottom. Yeah, so there's lots of different ways you can add things to it. And I'm just going to show you how different materials make different sounds. Still got a little bit of water in it. So if we pop the rice into here, it's a good job I'm the one that cleans up. Okay, so you've not got too much rice in there, and it will dry out inside. It's just because I've just washed the bottle. So I'm just going to tighten the bottle up. And again, if we just do it gently, it's a very gentle sound. You can do the same as we did with the tube and swirl it. That's a completely different sound again to the tube. And you can use it as a shaker. lots of different things. Now, obviously, different items inside are going to sound different. So this is rice, and I'm just going to show you quickly what it sounds like with pasta. I'm going to take out most of that rice. And you can see the items that I'm using, they're really not expensive items. They're just really basic stuff that you have in the cupboards. In the past, I've used rice, dried peas, lentils, all sorts of different dried items. I suppose you could use cereal. You could try different cereals to see what that sounds like. So I'm just putting normal tube pasta. I think they call this penny pasta. I think that's probably enough. And again, pop the lid on quite firm. This will move all the rice as well. So again, if you are just tipping it from one side to the other, that's quite a firm sound. It's much noisier. It will still swirl. A lot noisier than the other options, and you can use it as a shaker. Okay, and each item that you use is going to sound different. So I've got an empty sweet tub here, and I'm not going to use the lid. I'm just going to show you the difference again. So I'm going to pop the rice in. And if you didn't have a cover on it, again, this could be quite a nice, relaxing rain sound, maybe. I do have the lid. The lid will make it sound different again because now the rice is enclosed, so the sound is going to be more enclosed. And you could use that as a shaker. But one thing that I've noticed does make a difference is if we use aluminium foil or tin foil. So I'm just going to take a piece that's slightly bigger than the sweet tub, and I'm going to try and squish it over the edges. Now, I'm not securing this with anything. I'm not going to put any elastic bands on or anything like that. But I'm literally just kind of screwing it over the edges where the lid would fit. Now then, if you want again to make this more permanent, as I've said before, you can secure it with tape around the outside. You know, you could perhaps use elastic bands, although they would have to be really big ones. And the difference in the sound this makes is it's reacting with the foil. So it makes it sound a little bit louder. Once you've secured it and you're able to turn it over, I'm going to do it very gently. That's a different sound again. Now, if you are extremely gentle, you could use this as a drum. So I'm going to use my firm reusable straws. I think that sounds more like a snare drum than the rest of the drums that we made before. So you've got lots and lots of different options there. So just moving on from the drums a little bit, if you want to add in some different kinds of tones to your drum kit, if you looked at a real drum kit, you would find that there would be metal objects, metal additions to your drum kit. So you may find a cymbal in there, you may find a cowbell in there, and lots of percussionists, which are drummers, people that use shakers, tambourines, that kind of thing. They use lots of different instruments to create different sounds. So I've just taken these items out of my kitchen because they're metal and they're all going to make a different sound, a different tone. So we've got a pie dish, We've got a dish that you would perhaps put curry in or rice in if you were cooking. And these are measuring cups or measuring dishes that basically you use when you're baking. And I've got a couple of whisks. And the reason I've picked these out is because they're all different sizes and they're all slightly different shapes. So if we just look at the pie dish first, and I'm just going to use these firm reusable straws that we used before. If you just have the pie dish and it was just flat on a surface, it's quite a flat sound. Completely different sound if you turn it over, because you are closing this area, you're closing the open area. So if you had a drum, it would have a top on it. So by putting a top on it, if you like, even though it's at the bottom, you're closing the opening just to create a different sound. And they all have different sounds. So if we listen to this one, completely different together. Now this one won't lie completely flat because of the handles. But I'll show you the difference. So that one could be used as the same sound as you would get from a cowbell, or perhaps a triangle. If any of you use the little triangles, maybe at school, that you strike with another piece of metal. So again, this is the straw. Now if we just use something metal, so I'm using the handle of a spoon because it's easy to hold. Slightly different again. Now if I show you these small ones here, because of the size and the thinness of the metal, they all make different noises. And it's flat on a surface, it's not able to vibrate properly around the area to give you the sound that you're looking for. So if you're looking for a flat sound, quite a dull, firm sound, put it on a surface. If you want to create a lighter, higher pitch sound, and again with a different beater, so that's plastic, that's just a hard plastic. I'm not hitting it any harder, it's just a much firmer beater to hit it with. It makes a higher pitch sound. Now you can change the way you play the instrument. It doesn't have to be just a hit, it could be round the inside, a little bit like an old dinner bell. You really can just enjoy different sounds, and this will come off this holder in the middle, so you could perhaps have them hanging, and they all make different tones. Just trying to get it so that it's swinging a little bit for you. That was quite high. That one's a little bit lower. Lower still. And lower still. So just in my hand there, if you were able to separate those and hang them on a string, you would have a full range of different notes from one piece of kitchen equipment. Now, not all sounds have to be loud. Some sounds can be quite gentle, as we've shown with the rainmakers and the shakers. So I'm just going to show you that if you were using two whisks, because they are quite thin pieces of metal and because they vibrate when you hit them, it's a very, very gentle sound. And you can incorporate that by using these as drumsticks. All different sounds. I'll let you play around with them. Now, one of the hardest instruments to recreate would be a guitar or a string instrument where you would be able to pluck to make a sound. So the best way I've come up with it, the easiest way I've come up with doing something similar, is by using elastic bands. Now, all these elastic bands actually came on various bits of vegetables. So things like this were tying up spring onions. The white one, if I remember correctly, was round leeks. So again, these are all just items that you could possibly have in your house, but if you don't get them as part of your recycling, then you can just buy a selection of elastic bands. Now this one's really quite thick, so this one would be no good to pop on here, which is what I'm going to show you. So this is the same tube, the same gravy granule tube that we were using before to make sounds by tapping the end, you know, doing the flexible bit at the bottom. And what I've done is I've stretched 3 different types of elastic band round. So we've got a thicker one, probably about the same, probably about the same thickness as that, maybe somewhere in between. So it's a good strong one. And then we've got a really thin one. So this one would have been a little bit bigger than that. So you can see different size, different thickness. And then I've got a white one, which is somewhere in between. So I've just stretched them around. They're quite equally distanced at the top, but it doesn't matter if they cross over down the side, as long as they're secure. And I'm just going to hold it gently, and we call this plucking. So by pulling one of the elastic bands, it makes a sound because the area inside is acting as the speaker. And you can hear 3 distinct different notes there because of the thickness and the tension because of the different sizes. So again, if you are lucky enough that you can collect a couple of these tubes, it will sound completely different on the Pringles tube that we showed you before, but you would need much bigger elastic bands. And you could really, you know, have some fun with that. You could use lots and lots of different elastic bands. You can use different containers again, but my experience of trying out the different things that we've got, this is the best sound. I've tried it on a can and it's quite dull. It doesn't really do a great deal. This is the best sound. It seems to make the best speaker. Now, one of the things I haven't shown you is a possible wind instrument sound. Now, we're not going to be able to make things like trumpets and saxophones and stuff like that, but you can make a wind instrument sound by using bottles. Now, I'm going to show you the difference. And it takes a little bit of practice, this, because I found that the best way is to use a bottle with a smaller opening. So if you can see how those two have really quite different size openings at the end of the bottle, you know, the neck size is different. When you try and blow into them, they're going to make a completely different sound. And I found the big ones really don't make much sound at all. So if you're using items that you would just have in your normal shopping, I've got a lemonade bottle, a normal Pepsi bottle, and a really big Pepsi bottle, just to show you the difference in sound. Now, to get this noise, you've got to kind of do this with your lips. So you're kind of holding your top lip over your bottom lip, and you're going to blow, but you're only going to blow very, very gently, and I'll show you why. So if you've got the bottle and you kind of go, if you blow really hard, you're not going to get a sound out of it. So it's about experimenting with where you think your mouth should be. Now, I kind of place it just under my bottom lip there, very gently. And you can hear the noise it's making just by speaking into it. So you really don't have to shout loud. You don't have to blow very hard. And you're just going to experiment by blowing inside the bottle to see what sound you can get. So that's quite a high one. If you went for a normal lemonade bottle, again, you're going to have to find your way to do it. But once you've got the hang of it, it's really easy. Oh, that's much lower. Let's see if it makes a big difference with the big one. Oh, that's very deep. So again, you can see just from the size of bottles what you're going to be able to do with them, what sound you're going to be able to get out of them. Now, if you don't have lots of different size bottles like this, and it can be any bottle, it doesn't have to be a pop bottle. Some bottles, so you may find if you still get milk in a bottle, in a glass bottle, that's a slightly narrower opening than that, and that will still work. I've done it with a milk bottle before. You may find that you've got bottles of shampoo or that kind of thing in the bathroom. They just make a really good sound when they've got a nice area to blow into and a nice thin neck on the bottle. So if you've only got one type of bottle, so say you've only got lemonade bottles, or you've only got small Coke bottles or something like that, you can still use them, and the way to change the sound is by adding liquid. Now, I would just suggest water, because if you're clumsy like me and you're forever knocking things over, then at least it's easy to clean up. So these two bottles are the same size, even though they're different brands. This one's got nothing in it, and this one's filled about, I'd say, just under a quarter of the way with water, just to show you a difference. So again, I'm just going to blow in this one. Just ever so slightly higher. Now, the more water you fill it with, the less space it's got to vibrate, so it's going to give you a different sound. So again, just experiment, see what you've got around the house, but promise me you're not going to go round emptying bottles down the sink just so that you can use empty bottles. Otherwise, I'm going to have a lot of angry emails. Just ask your mums and dads, or whoever it is that you know, does the recycling, just to save you some bits and bobs, and you can have a play around with them, experiment, and I will see you next week with the next video, and hopefully you'll have some instruments made and I'll show you how to use them in a song.